April 18th, you are here with us at MS Office Hours. I am Heather Cox, one of your hosts, and with me today are the lovely co-hosts of.
Hey, I'm Garrett Chandler.
And I'm Andrea Sangrio.
And Garrett, would you love to introduce Rod for
Oh my
us?
gosh, it would be my honor. Thank you, Rod, for joining. So, everyone, this is Rod Trent. He is a senior PM on the Cloud Advocate team. And if you know Rod, he's actually kind of like a celebrity in the IT community. Super grateful for him to be here today. Rod, thanks for joining us. In honor of you, I actually am wearing my System Center Universe 2015 shirt. So I'm going back a decade. I don't know if you were at that conference. I want to say I
I
met you
was. I
briefly.
was. I was.
So this one was actually in honor of you. So thank you for joining us, and you're going to talk to us about Security Copilot.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Hey, by the way, Garrett, SCU now stands for Security Compute Unit, which we
I
reinvented.
know.
So it's no longer System Center Universe. And maybe we'll not talk about that. And when we talk about Copilot for Security, first off, I want to apologize. It seems like I should have been from the Microsoft Teams group instead of Copilot for Security, but thank you for having me anyway. And Marge, bless your heart. I actually appreciate that phrase because I know a lot of people that say that constantly. They'll literally rip somebody and then just say, bless their heart. It's just like a kind way of ripping somebody. So I appreciate that. And Bill, I have the orange, buddy. Just want to let you know. I am watching everyone. I do truly appreciate this already. I have to tell you, my colleagues at Microsoft are super boring and super serious, and this was super refreshing. So I appreciate you all having me. I think this is great. Hopefully, you'll be interested in the things that I have to discuss today. Hopefully, you've heard a little bit about this. I want to spend some time today talking about Copilot for Security, but then also doing some demos and stuff like that. I don't know how many of you have heard do that little reaction thing in Teams. If you've heard about Copilot for Security, got a few. All right, few. Looks good. I'm sure probably some of you might even have been part of the early adopter program or maybe our private preview program. But if that's the case, absolutely thank you for all your hard work and anything that you do in our private preview programs in the CCP that actually leads to much better products and much better services that our customers like to consume instead of the services we think our customers like to consume. So we truly, really appreciate you for that. So I am Rod Trent, Senior Program Manager here at Microsoft. I've been focused on cybersecurity for like the last 5 years, but really hyper focused on this thing called Copilot for Security. Actually, when it first started, it didn't have a name, and then it was Security Copilot. Then we rebranded everything like we always do, and we just create a bunch of Copilots. We're going to Copilot everything, just like we've Defendered everything. So don't expect this to be the last Copilot you ever hear about, or someone wants to come and talk to you all about their latest Copilot, because it will happen again, I promise you. But I'm Rod Trent, and there's a couple important things about this slide. Number one, you can see my grandkids there on the left. My grandboy will be 3 years old in about 2 weeks. Today is my grandbaby girl's 1 month birthday. So she's been with us for a month. It's super awesome. I was in Denmark a month ago on this day. Woke up to texts from my wife saying, hey, the baby arrived. I had worked so hard to try to actually just be home for the birth, and it didn't really work out. Couldn't get out of the Denmark trip, but it was all good. I got to talk about Copilot for Security while I was there. But the other second most important thing about this slide, for some of you it may be Pop-Tarts, but for me it is how that you connect with me. In my role at Microsoft, I work in the feedback economy. Everything that I do, feedback helps me in my role, whether it's delivering feedback to our product teams or delivering feedback from our product teams to our customers. I'm kind of like the middle person that is like the liaison between those two groups. So any feedback you have about our products, or anything that we talk about today. If we can't cover it, if you want some clarity later on, it's really easy to find me. I'm a very public person. I don't hide from people. You can find me on LinkedIn and also Twitter, and I actually do respond because, again, feedback economy. If you like me, give me feedback that I can take back to my manager, and then I get promoted. So that's how that all works. All right. So don't hesitate to reach out. I promise I'll get back with you if you have any questions or anything. I know we have some awesome people here that help you out. But at the same time, if you need another resource, I'm happy to be that resource. All right. So here's our agenda today. We don't have a lot of time. I just probably a couple hours ago, I finished a 2-hour discussion about Copilot for security. So I can talk about this thing all day. I've been hyper focused on this for the last year and a couple months. Copilot for security has come a long way in development in the last year or so. Initially, when ChatGPT was released and everybody got so super excited about that, Microsoft looked at that and we determined customers need a ChatGPT client just to create KQL queries. So this is where all this started. KQL, that Kusto query language, that query language that we use across everything in the cloud. It was simply to create a chatbot that would create KQL for customers to help them kind of get over that hurdle to using our security products and all the other stuff within Azure and even Intune and stuff like that, which uses KQL today. Someone looked at it, someone higher up in the org, and said, you need to rethink this. Somebody needs to put on a big brain, and I think we can do a little bit more around this, around generative AI. And that's where Copilot for security actually came from, was that individual. And you can imagine who that was saying, let's do something bigger with this. Think bigger, use big brains. But for our time together today, I want to just kind of lead in a discussion. I want to kind of tell the story, right? So we'll talk a little bit about generative AI up front, just a brief, just to kind of get us kind of focused and give us some base understanding of what we looked at Microsoft and what we tried to create as far as this Copilot for security, and then do an introduction, Copilot for security, and then I will jump into my Copilot for security console and also the Defender console where it also exists and show you some things and how that actually works. Hopefully that's okay. Hopefully that's what you were expecting. If not, the chat is open and I'll try to watch as we go along and answer any questions. And please feel free to ask questions. Again, there's that feedback thing. All right. I'm going to keep harping on that until you do it. Let's see. Budgets are built. Oh, there was a question, but okay. So first off, everybody knows what generative AI is, right? Everybody, give me some something. I see a heart. That's about it. I see a thumbs up. Thank you, David. So generative AI, let's just spend a brief moment there. Generative AI is this new hotness that everybody wants to talk about. That is ChatGPT. What was it? November, was it 2021 when it was released? Everybody thought this thing was the greatest thing since sliced bread, or is it 2022? How long has it been around? I keep forgetting. Is it 2 years or 3 years? Hey, somebody in the chat. 2022. Thank you. Oh my goodness, that was going to drive me nuts the rest of the day. So it's 2022. So November 2022, ChatGPT released. And it was new hotness. Everybody wanted it. Everybody wanted to use it. Everybody thought it was great. Of course, no one thought whether they should use it or what they should use it for. So you found a lot of users sometimes subsequently sticking like their social security numbers in there, phone numbers, addresses of their friends. I mean, just weird things. Hey, show me the address of my friend or my buddy. And not realizing that ChatGPT actually used the information that you typed in and used to produce results. It actually used that to train its models. So if you had some kind of corporate IP or something private and you stuck it in there, OpenAI actually used that. At Microsoft, one of the first things that we did, because OpenAI is a partner, we kind of took a step back and said, we need to kind of figure out how to do this a little bit better, a little bit more secure, a little bit more private. Because our customers are going to have a super big concern about all of this. So generative AI, as you know, using ChatGPT, it does a bunch of things, right? So using natural language, you can ask it questions, real questions like you would in person, face-to-face with someone, and it's going to respond in natural language. Initially, it wasn't always perfect, right? And it's still not quite perfect today, but that's also improving. And what we have done at Microsoft for Copilot for Security, because we have honed this and developed it to be hyper focused on security, we can trust the results a lot better than just someone going out and, hey, give me a poem about walking in the snow in a starlit night. All right. So it uses natural language. We as humans, for the longest time, have kind of had our operations or the things that we do for searching and doing research kind of dictated to us by the search engines, right? So over time, we've developed some of these really, really bad habits in that we kind of type in archaic phrases and then we kind of get the results in the search engine and we search for 5 or 6 pages to determine that, man, I need to search again. I need to use a different search string. That's one of the things that we're trying to, with generative AI, is trying to solve. Instead of forcing you to spend all the time researching your research, generative AI should be intelligent enough and smart enough, particularly when we talk about Copilot for Security, to produce results that you actually wanted and that's actually valuable to you. So again, going back to that in-person discussion, asking questions and using context, and just so you can get the answers that are necessary for what you were searching for. So it goes back to, we have to kind of change our mindset from an old search mentality now to, again, just kind of one-on-one discussions. All right. So it uses natural language, and it gives us the ability to even personalize how we ask those things. So I can ask a full question. Hey, give me this result based on this, get it from here, this web page, whatever it happens to be. Anyone that is here that has used any of the M365 Copilot, you can tell it to look at a document for you. Hey, give me a summary of this document. You can get as much or as little information as you want. Let's see. Also important, this plays into Copilot for Security. One of the things that we identified early on is how to use generative AI accurately. I talked a little bit earlier about the privacy or the private data or the corporate IP that sometimes gets used in things like ChatGPT or some of the other chat services out there. You have to understand the data that it's using, but you also have to understand the data that you are using to collect or gather those responses that you're looking for. Personally verify, we're still at a point in time in this juncture where even if I get a really, really good result, sometimes you have to still kind of personally verify that that's the case. Remember I said that Copilot for Security actually started literally just as a tool to generate KQL queries. Well, it can do that today, right? I can say, hey, give me a query to do this thing so I can go search in Defender and get some results, or search in Intune to get results on a conditional access policy. I can do that, and it'll give me those KQL queries, but I still need to have some essential knowledge around KQL. Not that it's not going to give me some great KQL queries, because it will. But me being a KQL person, being the person that I am and have worked with KQL for so long, I can look at that query and go, well, you know what, that could have been better, right? Just because of generative AI, how it is, AI wants to please us. So it's going to give you something that's good, but it might not be the best or perfect. So you still have to have some level of knowledge. So it's not going to replace us in that respect. Feedback is super important. One of the things that we identified also early on, you see this in Bing, you see this in Copilot for Security, see it in all of our Copilots. There's an option to actually provide feedback, and not just rating the response, but also giving us the feedback about why that was good or why that was horrible or how it could be better, right? And we actually take that information, there's that feedback economy again. We take that feedback and help ground or improve on those data models that are being utilized for whatever Copilot that is. Want to highlight too as well, customers ask about this quite a bit. They don't actually ask for, hey, what's Microsoft's stance on responsible AI? What they ask is, hey, I heard this news story about Google about a month and a half ago where you would ask it something and it would give you kind of biased results, right? We built this responsible AI framework, and this has been 6 or 7 years in the making. And we built this all throughout those 6 or 7 years. And this is a framework that all of our teams at Microsoft adhere to when they develop their tools to utilize generative AI. So privacy, security, the accountability, reliability, and safety. You should be able to trust those results, but those results also should not offend. We won't go into it too deep today, but there are some mechanisms, even with Copilot for Security. It goes through all of these steps. I think there's like I'm trying to think here. There's like 15 steps that it goes through from the time that you type in a question to the time the result comes back. There's like 15 steps that it goes through the process before it returns the results. One of the very last things that it does is it looks at the response that it's going to respond with. And if it's not responsible, if it's offensive, then it's going to tell you that it is, right? And it's going to fix it even before it comes back. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but it's important that it does so because we don't want you to be offended by your own little chatbot. A little personal anecdote. I created my own little chatbot before Copilot for Security was released or further along in the development. And mine was to create KQL queries. And even today, it does a great job. But what I ended up doing was giving it the personality of Flo from Mel's Diner. If you're a 70s or 80s TV watcher, there was this TV show, Mel's Diner, and there was this lady on there named Flo, and she was a Southern person. I imagine she probably did say bless his or her heart quite a bit. But she also said things like eat my grits and stuff like that. So my chatbot has that personality. That's probably offensive to some people. I get a kick out of it, but it does respond. It'll give me a KQL query, but it'll call me honey and sugar quite a bit, and probably will say bless your heart eventually. So kiss my grits. Everybody gets that. That's awesome. I appreciate that, actually. That's great. So let's jump into Microsoft Copilot for Security is the first generative AI security product that is built to empower IT pros and empower security teams. All right. No one has actually said it better than Lance Ulanoff. It was about a month ago. This article, see over on the right-hand side, and there's a QR code if you want to read the article. Copilot for Security is not an oxymoron. It's a potential game changer for Security Star business is the actual article name. Lance is sometimes not been real kind to Microsoft. So Lance to actually say this, I thought this was super important and super valuable for people to understand the effort that Microsoft is putting into their Copilots, particularly Copilot for Security. So I'm just going to read this. This is just the best explanation of Copilot for Security. Microsoft Copilot for Security acts as a sort of intense and ultra-fast security consultant, able to read through complex hash files and scripts to divine their true intent and quickly recognize both known threats and things that act like existing threats. Microsoft claims that using such a service could help address the security personnel talent shortage. And that's super awesome. I love that. And I use that quite a bit. And I've thanked Lance for it. He's not responded to me. I don't even know if he likes me. I was probably mean to him at one point for being mean to Microsoft, and that's probably why he didn't respond. Who knows? Maybe one of these days we'll fix that bridge, but we'll do that when we come to it. So why does Copilot for Security exist? Why did it go beyond just being a KQL creator to something that we believe is a great, awesome security framework for all organizations to be able to utilize? Some of these stats, right? 4,000 password attacks per second. These are things that Microsoft, that we actually collect these stats and we actually build out our security roadmaps based on these things. Now, some of this stuff is improving, but some of this is not. And we're hoping that something like Copilot for Security will help our defenders, help skill them so that these things, these numbers can be adjusted so that they look a lot better. 72 minutes median time for an attacker to access your private data, right? So those phishing emails, 72 minutes is not a lot of time. Not so they can access that data. And once they access that data, they have access to everybody's data potentially. So we have to be careful about that. The one thing I do want to 100% highlight here, though, is that 3.5 million, that global shortage of cybersecurity professionals, that still exists. So myself and a couple of my colleagues, we deliver this security show once a week on Mondays called Microsoft Security Insights. In March, we had a tribute to women in cybersecurity. We had 2 shows a week and had a lot of Microsoft women on there throughout the month. And talking with them, it seems like to me, based on their responses, things are getting a little bit better. However, that number is still huge. I'm not sure it's 3.5. I haven't checked in the last day or so, but that's still significant. Understanding that security is top of mind for a lot of execs, but at the same time, there's not a lot of budget, not a lot of resource to provide the details that those teams, IT pros and security people, need to actually do the security job, right? So not just the skill set, but also just kind of a shortage in those types of workers and the ability to have more people on a team. Tell Rod to get on board and call it security office hours. Sorry about that. Security office hours. All right. Just a little bit about Microsoft Copilot for security, a little bit, some things that we're doing. I know we're like 8 minutes out, and I definitely want to jump into some of this. I'll provide this deck afterwards. You can read this stuff. I know you guys are readers. That's all good. One of the things I do want to highlight, though, before we kind of move on, MDTI, Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence, is a huge thing at Microsoft. Usually requires its own license, but if you're a Copilot for security user or customer, then MDTI actually comes with it for free. This gives Copilot for security access. Remember I talked about earlier how, those data models, Copilot for security is created very specifically for security, right? So those data models that is provided to Copilot for security, it's all security stuff, right? Part of that is MDTI. There at Microsoft, through all of our services, customers using our services, we collect over 65 trillion signals of information every day. And within those 65 trillion, we have mechanisms and processes in place at Microsoft that we collate and filter those that are fed back into our systems so that our defenders and our sentinels and our Copilot for security all has access to that. So I can go into Copilot for security, say, hey, what is the most current threat, and is my environment impacted, or could it be impacted? And Copilot for security will be able to respond because it knows, because it is utilizing that backend data set. Microsoft Copilot for security is, in essence, a security framework. So it's a Microsoft product. It's developed by Microsoft. It does integrate and embed with the Defender stuff. But at the same time, there's a standalone version of this that you can utilize plugins from vendors or some of your service providers, or even custom plugins to create that you can create that plugs into Copilot for security, make it more intelligent. You can see there on the left-hand side, there's some of the Microsoft plugins, but out of the box, Copilot for security actually has plugins for things like Splunk, Logarithm, ServiceNow, trying to think of some others, Tanium, if people use Tanium. There's the Intune stuff, right, which is ours, but it is a AI stack that you just plug things into to make it more intelligent immediately. There's 2 experiences. I just talked about that really quick, but there's a standalone version, which I'm going to spend more time in here, and there's the embedded version. We are getting super close to the end, so I am going to jump into Copilot for security. And I was given this just a little bit ago. You can see that. And by the way, this is the cached session right here, which it couldn't complete. Just wanted to double check individual that wanted me to do that. This is Copilot for security. This is the standalone version. I have some things that I've run more recently, and I want to show you that. I have some things like I wanted to get reputation for the host name service logins. This one's interesting. Say you're an organization with a small team, right? Or maybe you're an IT team with no security people, but you still need to, you're still responsible for security. But I don't have a workflow for new hires. I don't have this process right here. I can actually ask Copilot for security to give me that information. And of course, I also, by the way, so this is what it gives me back. Create a lifecycle workflow. It gives me that process. Copilot for security is smart enough and intelligent enough to do that for me. You can see down here as well. Say I had Chinese colleagues. We have a different office. Maybe it's in Beijing. I translated this response into Chinese, and I was able to send it because it supports 8 different languages, up to 25 localizations, I believe, right now, and that's always increasing and improving. I'm going to jump over to the Defender console because remember I mentioned there is a standalone version and then there's an embedded version. If we go into Defender, right now I have this incident right here, Cloud Shell execution involving one user. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and you'll see that when I go into that, it's going to take a second because I'm presenting Copilot for security. This provision Copilot for security actually initiates and starts right away. I can close and it's still going to do its thing. I can see here that this attack story happened. This guy, Rod Trent, whoever this person happens to be, I don't know what he's doing with Cloud Shell, but he ran PowerShell in the cloud. I need to know if he should do that, if he should have appropriate access to be able to do that. Let's see if Copilot's done its job. Sure enough, it has. It gives me the actual incident summary, so I don't even have to sit here and do the due diligence and do a lot of the work that I had to do before, which would take me probably an hour to determine exactly what's going on here. Copilot for Security actually gives me this incident summary. This is a medium level. Here's the execution. Here's what we think. Here's what Copilot for Security thinks that you should do about this. So I don't even have to make those adjustments, don't have to make those determinations. It actually gives me an email. It says, you want to contact this user. Here's the email address. Contact them on Teams, or I could do that in email. And I can actually copy and paste this email and send it to them, right? I can copy this to the clipboard. I can pop that in email. I can send that in Teams. And then if Rod comes back and says, I didn't do that, or Rod comes back and said, I did it, and here's why and why I was given access to be able to do that, or maybe I'm on a special team now, something like that, you have a much better determination. It makes it a lot easier, a lot quicker for me able to close this thing out. Looking in here, it does save a lot of time. Can you estimate time savings? So that's kind of a subjective. Marge asked that. Can you estimate time saving? That's a very subjective. There'll be a very subjective response to that because everybody has different skill sets. Everybody works differently. But me, if it was me and I was the analyst that would be working on that Defender ticket, I'd probably scrutinize over that. I'm more of a perfectionist. I'd scrutinize over that probably about 2 or 3 hours. Okay. But you saw that it pulled up and did that thing. I don't have to close it yet, but I can contact that user and ask and query and ask why they did it. If they tell me they didn't do it, it's probably a good indication that maybe their account had been compromised and someone else was doing it under that account or under that access, right? So it gives me a way to determine that really quickly. And if I determine by their response that they didn't do that, maybe they're super forgetful. I don't know. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, bless their heart. But I can lock out their account. I can force them to change their password. There's all kinds of things I can do. And in fact, some of those things that Defender would produce in those incidents will give me the option to click a button and say, hey, I need to lock that user out and move on and do some other things. I see people coming on screen. It sounds like my time is up. You got the hook. You're going to yank me. Is that what I'm seeing?
Getting pretty close.
But
Definitely. We do try to end on time. I know we've probably got more questions. There was overwhelming interest in you coming back before we wrap for the season, before we take a summer break. So we will definitely be touching base with you on when we can get you back for even more information, and then following back up with you to get additional links to potentially your full presentation if it's out there somewhere that they could get a look at. They would love that. This chat goes and goes. So if you want to drop any links in there, that would be great. Yes, Steve Lane, we take a summer break. You know this. You are chief of staff. No. So anything else, Garrett, before we wrap today? I think it is just you and I to close out today.
yeah, it's just us. But Rod, thanks so much for a great presentation. I mean, you captured the audience's attention. Everyone's here. So so thank you all for joining us today. Rod, thanks again for joining us. And yeah, let's schedule a follow-up. I think there's a lot of interest there.
Yeah, that'd be great. And thank you, everyone. I truly appreciate it. Like I said, it was like coming home. I really appreciate the camaraderie. You guys are awesome.
Yeah. And you don't have to present all the time, Rod. You can just be here.
Just join us.
No, it's an ego thing. I have to present.
All right. I'm going to kick you all out. Thanks for being here this week.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.